All right. Welcome to the Whole Women's Health interview series. This is Brianna Wilkerson from Made Well with Hanna. Is it Saar?
Saar.
Okay. Yes. Mindset and strategy coach. And today we are talking about mental health. So thanks so much for joining us, Hanna.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's a topic very dear to my heart, so I love talking about it.
Yeah. So we could just kind of dive right in. And I just kind of really, when I was thinking about who to pick for mental health, obviously I thought about you. Because we're in the same mastermind, but also just really seeing your heart for mental health and what you do for your clients. I just really wanted you to share a little bit about that. So maybe just tell us your background with mental health and kind of what led you to being a mindset and strategy coach.
Yeah, sure. So I think I've always been that person that people come to, right, when they have a certain problem, or if they want to get something off their chest. And when I was choosing what to study next after high school, it just sort of naturally came to me to study psychology. Mm-hmm. And I did that, but over the course of that there was also my own healing with stage fright. Mm-hmm. So I had huge stage fright, and I had this huge dream of becoming a singer when I was little. But it just the fear and the anxiety, it just took over. Mm-hmm. And at some point I just said, like, enough is enough. I cannot take this anymore, right? And maybe it's not meant to be, right? That's sort of the story that I started to tell myself. It's not meant to be. When I have to work like so hard to get over the fear and just go on stage and I'm not enjoying that, mm-hmm. then what's the point, right? And I think we often get to that point and when we're having, anxiety or fear around something. And we often get to that point where we feel like maybe it's not meant to be, or we tell ourselves this story to get away from the fear instead of dealing with the fear, right? Instead of actually overcoming it. Or learning how to cope with it in a way that we can still pursue our dream. Mm. And that's what I learned to do while I was studying psychology. I learned that, wow, this is the thing that I can actually cope with. This is something that I can overcome. This is something I can work through. And then and I also had this dilemma because I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do with this education, right? So I knew I didn't want to be a traditional therapist. I knew I didn't want to be in a hospital. I sort of eliminated a lot of the choices. And coaching back then wasn't really a thing here in Estonia where I studied. So it never really crossed my mind. And so after my master's, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just pursue my dream of becoming a singer? And I went on to study classical singing because by that time I was really coping really well with the stage fright, and I didn't really have any problems with that anymore. Mm-hmm. And even during my studies as a classical singer, then I was helping other singers with their stage fright and their anxiety. And then I started to teach psychology to young musicians and so on and so forth. And so it was also like always a part of my journey was also helping other people with their mindset and their fears and their doubts and so on and so forth. And so eventually I discovered the world of coaching, and I had a bit of I started with as a life coach. I knew I wanted to help people realize their dreams. I wasn't really sure what angles or how, that's how I think we all go through these little pivots and changes in business, because we start out with this general feeling, this gut feeling of what we want to help people with, but we are not exactly sure how to or how to pack that. And so over the course of the last year, that's where I really honed in that my strength is the mind, right? Because I've studied it and it fascinates me. And I truly believe that that's where sort of everything begins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's such a beautiful story. And I think it's so interesting because you're right. If you wanted to sing and be a musician, you have to kind of deal with people in this, in this thing. I sing too with my worship team, and what's cool about that is I could close my eyes and they'll think, oh, she's just like reflecting. But in like when you're performing, you can't just like ignore, you know, the people around you. So that is amazing. And I love what you said about we tell ourselves that the story of fear is kind of okay. Like we kind of just sit there and be like, I'm afraid of it, so I'm not going to do it. And so that's awesome that you use that to help. Even I didn't know that you helped other musicians through it too. That's really cool.
Yeah, because people came to me like, you know, you've studied psychology, like how do I get over this?
I know. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I had and then sort of work it out that I had this master's degree in psychology, and I started to give classes, and you know, people started to come to me just like, you know, every day I was in school as a student and as a teacher sort of, and people started to come to me like, you know, hey, you know, I'm in your class and, you know, you talked about this and this and have this problem, right? I have this like fear or, you know, whatever. And so I started a second course that was really geared towards really understanding your fears, your anxieties, like all of this. And in that framework of like, how do I cope with that when I want to be a musician, right? Because musicians often, I think that it's entrepreneurs really, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we want to be the best, right? We want to be really high achieving. We want to build these 6-figure, 7-figure, whatever figure businesses. And we also have this pressure of we want to stand out online, right? We all have these role models of like Orleo or like can't say her name. Oh my God, I can't say that. Well, like Denise Duffield Thomas, whoever, right? Sort of these big figures in the online world. And we all strive to be that, or we all feel like we should be on that level to be successful, right? And I feel that's very similar to musicians, where they also look at like the biggest rock stars, right? The biggest opera singers, the greatest of the great, right? And that's totally normal, and that's where sort of you have to start. I think you have to have that enthusiasm that I'm going to be the next, I don't know, Rolling Stones, right? Or I'm going to be the next, I don't know, Trap, or I'm going to be the next whoever, right? But in that process, we also can put too much pressure on ourselves to be the best, and then we start doubting ourselves, like, do I have what it takes? And we can get stuck in this fixed mindset of like, maybe I don't have it, which is sort of to believe that there is such a thing as having it, that it's not all learned, that it's some kind of an innate, you know, whatever, talent or strength or whatever, and we either have it or not, which is totally not the case. But we often fall into that trap of believing that that's the case, right? We either have it or we don't. If the success doesn't come fast enough or the growth doesn't happen fast enough, we start to doubt our own ability to even get there at some point.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Broke it down for us. So then how, so I know you said you kind of went into just kind of the coaching world with that, and were you just kind of helping just women in their business before and then switch to the mind part and the mindset? Or
yeah, it's sort of like it started as I said, I started as a life coach because I didn't know what else to call myself, right? And I started to work with people, and I stumbled upon women who had businesses, and I think it was a really natural course too, because before that I also dabbled in several online businesses. I sold handmade items on Etsy, and then I had a DIY blog. And so I had a lot of experience already, and I had learned a lot about online business already. So that was also sort of a natural progression. But I started to talk more and more about, with entrepreneurs. And what I really saw was that my skills and my knowledge in the world of psychology, or like our mind, right, is so needed in that world. And then I switched to being like sort of a confidence and implementation coach, because I also feel like taking action is really important. And then it sort of evolved into really honing that mindset part, and now being a mindset and strategy coach. But yeah, it went really naturally from just doing life coaching to helping people. Like the people that I just like got as clients just happened to be entrepreneurs too. And it just happened that we were working a lot of the times, like we were working on their mindset when it came to their business, because that's where they were getting stuck.
Yeah. And it's so important what you do, because I since going full time with my business in February, I never realized how much my mindset could really impact just not my life, but my business. Like my business is only going to grow as much as my mindset grows. And if my mindset sucks in a certain area, business just won't happen then. And I think it's so important. And I know often even as entrepreneurs, we're so eager to do well and succeed, to get our clients and have our business grow. But if we're not working through the things inside, then it's not going to get anywhere, like, or at least to the level that we want it. And it's been some tough times. I remember, Anna, and just asking me certain questions. I'm like, this is not like implementing. I want action. I want to do stuff, but it's like, oh, my mind is not good with money right now. And it's so helpful that those questions were asked, because now I feel like I'm in a better place to deal with money or to deal with mindset in that area. So therefore my business has actually been better because of it. Right. And so I definitely think from an entrepreneurial point of view, like having someone specifically help with mindset is so important, and strategy, of course. Right. And so what would you say are the key things that come up with your clients as you're kind of coaching them, the key issues that are the mindset blocks you see them having?
Well, one of the big things is that sort of fear of not performing on a level, like we call it the fraud fear, right? The fraud syndrome, right? So people have the fear, like, what if I'm not good enough as a blank, whoever, right? What if I'm not good enough of a health coach? What if I'm not good enough of a jewelry maker? Whatever you do in your business, we have this fear that what if we are not good enough? What if we can't help our clients, or people aren't happy, or ask for refunds? Because what we do in our business is sort of really personal too. Yeah. I feel, especially if we have our own business, it's really tied to our oftentimes, like, we tie it to worth. And I think that's where a lot of problems really stem from, is we tie our own worth to our business's success. It becomes really, really emotional, really, really fast. Yeah. And it becomes really hard to make decisions, because we're not making them as, a CEO of a business. We're making them as a human being. It's sort of like a personal decision, which it shouldn't be, right? We need to acknowledge that we are worthy and valuable on our own without our business. Whether we succeed or we fail, that does not matter, right? We are still worthy. We're still amazing human beings, right? And that will never change. Yeah. That's not tied to how well we can coach people. And I think that was sort of something that I needed to learn personally too, because I take a lot of responsibility for what I put out there or how I coach people. And I was really hesitant to put my service out there or to charge a certain amount, just because of that fear. Like, what if I can't deliver? What if people don't get enough value out of what I put out there, even if it's free stuff, right? So understanding that you do your part, but also do their part. And that's, I think, why, like, where sort of strategy and mindset meet, is sort of like, that's why we talk about the ideal client avatar. And what I also talk about is that not just thinking about who you want to help, but who your best sort of you're most capable of helping. So who would benefit the most from what you have to bring to the table? Because you, with your unique personality, your unique products, the way you do things, the way you run your business, that is unique. That's like a unique package, right? And it's not just about reaching the people that we want to help, but reaching the people that we are best equipped to help.
Yeah.
Or, even if you think about, I don't know, jewelry or something that we make, art, right? There's a certain group of people that are going to love our art. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be a certain group of people who are going to hate it. Yeah. Because it's not their taste.
Right.
I think when it comes to art, we are more willing to accept that, this is sort of like one person is going to love it, the other person is going to hate it, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to coaching, it's actually the same thing, our services, because we have a unique way of doing our services, and that's going to fit together with one type of client, and it's not going to fit together with another type of client, and that's how it is. And I think that's like bringing that into the mix and seeing that, I have to just put together like this puzzle. I bring my piece, but the client has to bring her piece too, or his,
Yeah.
So it's not just all my responsibility. Mm-hmm. We both are equally responsible for the sort of success of the deal.
That's so great. Oh man, I'm just going to go and do something different now. I mean, no, I think what you were saying about ideal client avatar, that is such a thing. And it's really important to niche down and be very clear about who you want to reach. But I love how you said, who are you best, equipped to reach, and really being okay with that. And, even for myself personally, I me, I do all kind of different things. And I had to just come back and say, all right, I can still do those things, but who am I actually best equipped to reach? And that just meant like cutting some things down and narrowing down. And at first it was scary. I think it's scary because you want to succeed, you want clients, but you want the right ones. You want the ones that when you get up in the morning, you're going to have a call, you're excited to talk to them, right? Mm-hmm. You're like wanting to. And I feel like that's been happening so much more now, is that it is more like, I'm like, I love my job versus like I have to coach because I need to get income or something. And so that is such a great point. Love, love, love that. So what would you say, like, what are some of the things you suggest to your clients when that fear is coming up of not being good enough and feeling like a fraud? What are some of the things that you suggest they do or think through to kind of move past that?
Well, first of all, it's like thinking of things that they value about themselves that are not related to their business. Because I think that is hugely important to distinguish between like me as an entrepreneur and me as a person. Those are not the same thing, although they do overlap, but they are not. I'm not just an entrepreneur, right? I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a lot of things, right? And whether or not I'm good at email marketing, for example, right, says nothing about my general worth, right? And that's really important. This is lack of sales or lack of results or lack of growth, whatever it is not tied to my personal worth. It's probably something I just need to learn and get better at. It's not even necessarily anything with the services that I offer or the products that I offer, right? There are so many variables that go into a sale. But because we are egocentric in our nature, right? That's how our mind works. Everything becomes about us. And we need to be very conscious about that fact. So we need to realize, okay, and one of the things that really helps is thinking about, is this a thought or a fact? And those are not the same thing, right? Do I think I'm unsuccessful or am I really unsuccessful? And if so, by whose like standards, right? Or for example, like a really simple example would be, I suck at sales. I've only got 50 sales, right? But the fact is that you got 50 sales. whether that's good, bad, a lot, not at all, not enough, that's your interpretation of the fact. Mm-hmm. That's really important. And when it comes to those doubts, it's really helpful to think about, is this my thought, my opinion, basically, or is this a fact, right? Mm-hmm. So even if you got a client and you feel it's not working, right? Is this your feeling or is this a fact? Are they not getting the results that they wanted? And even if they aren't getting those results, is this just up to you, right? What's their part in it?
Yeah.
And another thing, I have a workbook for that, is just building up your confidence through like seeing the bigger picture of you, right? I talked about like different roles of you, but also seeing your different abilities, your skills. And again, if we put those down on paper as facts, like, okay, I have this education, I have these experiences, I have, these strengths, talents, whatever else is in my package, sort of, it becomes clearer that there's a lot more value that you're bringing that you're not acknowledging usually. Mm-hmm. And that really helps to silence the doubt too, to realizing like, I actually have a lot to bring to the table, but there's fear, obviously, and there's gonna be fear. And that's sort of the third key thing I think that people need to realize, is that there's always gonna be fear. Mm-hmm. Fear is like sort of the only companion you can always rely on to be there for you. But fear itself is nothing to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Sorry, my daughter is really excited.
It's okay. She can join us.
She's just excited because she's playing around and it's fun.
Yeah.
But basically what I'm saying is that, fear is just sort of a carrier of information, is how I see it, right? Mm-hmm. Fear tells us, these are the risks. And of course, fear exaggerates because it's a very primer. It's sort of like a very robust mechanism that we have, right? It needs to act like lightning fast. So it can't be as complex as our conscious mind. Therefore, it makes a lot of assumptions, right? Just to be on the safe side, sort of, right? It's safer for us to assume something is dangerous, even if it isn't, than to assume it's not dangerous and risk being wrong, basically. And that's what we need to realize, is that fear does not distinguish between potential fears and actual fears. And it doesn't distinguish between our mental health and our physical health. So whenever, like, it makes sense to be afraid of things that might physically hurt us. But I think we forget sometimes that we are equally as afraid of things that can mentally hurt us, right? That can cause us, pain or suffering in a mental way, right? Or they can threaten our identity or our self-worth, or, all of that sort of stuff that isn't tied to our, our physical body. And we tend to forget that. But fear acts, the same way, either way. So it always exaggerates. It always presumes or assumes that there's danger or more danger than there is. But it's always great to dive deeper into fear, because it tells us a lot of stuff that we might not have thought about, really, had we not gone there, sort of, right? So you can figure out, okay, this is an interesting thought, right? Maybe I'm afraid of success because I feel like I'm going to be overwhelmed, or I'm going to be too busy for the lifestyle that I really want to create, right? And that's really crucial information, because if you're afraid that that's going to happen, you're not going to pursue success because it isn't aligned with the vision that you have for your life, right?
Right. Yeah.
So fear is always going to be there, but fear is not an enemy. And I think that's something to remember always, is that it's not pleasant always to be afraid, but it is important. And it's also important to face that fear and see what's behind it, right? To sort of turn on the light, because like fear is sort of those monsters that are under the bed.
Yeah.
And we are sort of those scared toddlers, and we don't want to look, right? Because what if there is a monster? But once we turn on the light and look under the bed, that's where we discover that it's a teddy bear, right? Or, whatever is under there, but at least we know, right?
Wow. The way you just broke down fear, I'm like have mad notes all over the place. I think that's just so important what you're saying, the fact that fear is a carrier of information, and like most emotions, and rather than in running away from it, pursue it, go deeper, saying, because what is it trying to communicate to you?
Exactly.
So kind of maybe wrapping up, but what would you recommend for fear? Because I know that's a big thing for most people. What would you recommend? How can we go dive deeper into that fear? And what are some kind of tips or some steps to get to the root of that fear rather than running away from it? What would you suggest that we do with that?
Well, it's actually a very common exercise, but I don't think most people do it. And it's really diving into like, what is the worst that can happen? And not just saying that out loud and thinking that now that exercise is done. Really diving deep into it and journaling on what is the worst that can happen. Like, what are the scenarios that my mind is putting together that's really keeping me stuck? Because what fear does most of the time is that it keeps us stuck in that safe zone, right? So it just prevents us from taking any steps anywhere, right? Because like the safest space that we can be in is right now, where we are, right? Everything else is an unknown and brings about fear. So something that we can do is read, what is it that I'm afraid of? What is the worst that can happen? And not just thinking of one scenario, but thinking, okay, so what if that doesn't happen? What then? Because our mind can create a lot of scenarios, and you have to go all the way through them, all of them. And then you can use your rational mind to think about, okay, so what can I do with that? Where is my part of control in that, right? Is it something that I can control or I can't control, right? With the example of, the fear of success, I'm going to be too overwhelmed, I'm not going to have time. How can I prepare for that? Because it is up to me how many hours I work. It is up to me how much help I hire, and so on and so forth. And that helps to combat that fear in a way and say to the fear, okay, yes, sure, that would be really bad if that happened, but I get to control that, right? It's not something that will happen to me, but if it does go that way, that's something that I let happen. So I have a lot of control there, and I know what I can do right now to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And if so, sort of that scenario is eliminated, what else am I afraid of, right? Maybe I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to build success, right? I don't want to be that visible. Maybe that's my fear. And maybe that will lead me again to those self-doubt, like, am I capable of enough? If people will people find out that I'm actually not as awesome as I am? And that's really valuable to know too, because then I know what I need to work on. Then I know that I need to work on my confidence. I need to work on my value and owning my value and my worth, so that I know that, nobody's perfect, but I can grow, and I can, I have all this amazing package that I already can bring to the table, right? But there's always more to gain too. And that's, again, up to me to learn, to grow, and so on and so forth. It gives us a lot of control that we have if we stay in that fear place.
You're right. So simple, yet so profound if you do it. And I love how you're saying kind of like when you've gone through one scenario or fixed kind of one fear, moving on to that, because there's probably some other ones that are hidden below the iceberg,
Absolutely.
but that's not the most dominant one. So we haven't dealt with that yet. I have so much homework to do from this interview. No, it's so great. Well, just to wrap this up then, could you maybe just share with us how people could, get more in contact with you, follow you? Do you have any new things coming up that you want to share about and people can jump in on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best place to reach me and hang out with me and get like sort of that support is just joining my group, Mind Your Biz. And I have a short link for that, like bit.ly/Mind Your Biz group. So that's where you can find me, and that's the best place to reach me. And you can get freebies from there and all of that good stuff. So I think that's the best place. And I do have a group program coming up all about mindset. I can't say much else, but if you join the group, you'll learn all about that. And it's something that, I went through with my first group back in May, and the results people got were amazing. It's just so many shifts, and some of the people said, like, I didn't even know I had mindset issues like that before I started doing the work. And I know that mindset work can be a little bit scary sometimes because, again, like, we don't want to see what's under the bed, right? But it's so, so rewarding because the gain is always bigger than that initial uncomfort or discomfort that we have when we're dealing with that.
And what about that workbook you were talking about, the one around confidence? Is if people join your group, can they get access to that workbook, or is it paid or free?
Yeah, it's totally a freebie. So once you join the group, you can, the links are all in the group description, so you can get those things right away.
Awesome. Yeah, I love your group, Mind Your Biz. And I love the switch from that to that.
Yeah, other thing, because I think that's also something that, getting clarity around where you even are with your mindset is so important. And I have a quiz for that. So if you want to quiz yourself and see where your mindset is at, then you can just go to bit.ly/quiz my mindset.
Quiz my mindset. Awesome.
Yeah.
I remember seeing
And then
that.
you can take the quiz and find out where you're at.
So great. Oh, wow. I feel like I have so much to go process. But thank you so much for joining us. And it's just been so great to have you here. And for everyone else watching the replay, I'll be sending you all the links with this interview to all of Hanna's stuff. And if you are interested in getting help in your holistic health, so not just mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, but maybe vocational, financial, and relational, let me know. I have a new membership community for women centered around that. So thank you so much, Hanna. Any goodbye remarks you want to say?
Well, thank you for having me. I always love chatting about this, and I could talk about it all day.
I know.
Which you probably could too. And I really encourage people to also join your membership site, because I know that it's really awesome, and it can really help you, take care of yourself, because, we are who we are, and we are the only people that we're ever gonna have in this life. So we really better take care of what's here, and, our body and all of that is so related. So I love that you really taking a really holistic view of this and helping people take care of themselves better, because I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Oh, no. Thank you so much. Okay. Great. Thanks. And goodbye.
Bye.